Hello everyone, welcome to the latest interview of the Shooting with the Shooters series, and my guest this week is... This is the part where you introduce...
Hello, Matt. This is Brian.
Next big
Yes,
thing.
I'm here. The next big thing from you.
Now, unfortunately, many...
But I don't make videos, so no one knows me, so you can...
That is true.
You can use my name.
So he has been hidden from camera. If you've seen some of the Ring of Honor live event videos I've uploaded, he's always trying to hide. He's the guy that's trying to hide. He's trying to not show his face. But we got him on camera here for a very requested interview. I was surprised with the amount of questions I got in a day. But let's get things straight going. Brian, how did you get into pro wrestling?
Well, no one really got me into it. I just came across it, and the first thing I remember was shortly before WrestleMania 3, I saw the angle they shot for, the Hogan-Andre stuff.
Yeah.
And after that, I didn't watch consistently. I guess I went a few months, where I didn't come across it again. And then the first time where I really watched it and then never stopped was the first Saturday Night's main event after WrestleMania 3. So it would probably be May of '87. And ironically, Hogan wasn't on that show. I think it may have been his first show he wasn't on, so that was kind of odd.
Wow.
The main event was just job matches, so it was pretty interesting, but that would be the first thing I saw.
That's a different answer from the previous two we've gotten. But also, from there, then what you said that's when you started really watching, but can you remember a specific instance where this became your diehard passion?
Well, yeah, it was right. It was from that second time. Because I think the first time, I didn't realize what it was. I just saw it. It was probably, I remember how old, 4 or 5, whatever. So I didn't really pick up on it. But then after, when I guess I watched it from start to finish, I wasn't just seeing clips. So then that was when I was really into it, and I just kept watching ever since Superstars Challenge right after that, and talking about it, pretty much talking about it nonstop. So definitely from that point in May.
Alright, and before we continue with the question about the 80s, I need to ask you also, when did you get into the internet? Not necessarily YouTube, the internet.
I think it was 92 when I got online. Almost positive it was, September, I think, got the first computer. So 92. It wasn't AOL yet. It may have been a Juno, some weird name. So it was right before AOL came out. So yeah, it was 92.
Wow. Long time. But since...
Well, I guess it's a long time ago, yeah.
But quite a long time ago, actually. And then how'd you find your way into YouTube and into our little community?
It made it sort of 93.
But how did you find your way into the YouTube wrestling community?
Okay, that's kind of odd because I never... Here's what happened. I came back from WrestleMania Detroit, so 2007, and I got online and I was on talking to people on the bodybuilding forums and those type of things. I was not really on too much of the wrestling boards, but a lot of those things had wrestling subsections, and people were just burying WrestleMania like it was the worst show ever. And I was like, damn, I didn't think it was that bad. So something clicked in my head. I said, let me just hop on YouTube quick, and I searched for a review. I said, let me see if people agree with me. And this guy, PS Power's video came up, just bashing the show, right? So I'm like, God damn, something must be wrong with me. He's like, no one's liking this show. But from there, I didn't see another review type video. I don't know, maybe for a couple of years. I was really out of the loop. I didn't know that whole thing existed. It was just his one video, and that was it.
Wow. I believe that video was called Worst WrestleMania of All Time.
Something crazy like that. And it really made me question my knowledge of wrestling. So I'm like, man, something's wrong with me. I'm the only person on the planet liking this show.
And,
so that was odd. But from there, it had to be a few years later where I went back on it. I think it may have been, was ROH pay-per-views, was that 2007 or 2008?
2007.
When they started. 2007?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was around there or after, but I do remember going back on to see what people thought of different ROH shows, so.
Okay.
I was never in it, I didn't even know what a subscription was. When I found someone I liked, I just bookmarked the website. You know, and I would just go to the bookmarks and look at it that way.
Nice.
I had no idea what a sub was or anything. I just had no idea how it worked, which sounds kind of pathetic, but I wasn't on there enough to really understand it, so.
Alright, so let's go back in time a little bit now that we found your origins. Now, you once commented to me about the various promotions of the 1980s, like Mid-South and WCCW, and I guess my question to you is, when did you first, because we all had different times where we saw different wrestling that wasn't WWE. When did you, like, first, was it in the 80s when you started watching, when you saw other stuff?
No, because that wasn't really a time yet where I was going to be able to get my hands on the stuff. So it was like the early 90s. Like in the 80s, I had a neighbor who, I don't remember how old he was, probably in his 20s, but he was like a wrestling fan. So to me, he was like a god because he had all these things on tape, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I remember it was only like 88, 89. I was already watching all these old MSG shows from the 70s, all these Bruno matches and everything. He had like this huge bookshelf in his house with all these VHS tapes labeled, and I was just like, god damn. This is awesome. So I'll just go over there and treat it like Blockbuster and just pop things out and start watching them. So that's kind of how I was able to get exposed to a lot of the stuff because there was no other way. There wasn't an internet to find out about it. I wasn't into newsletters or magazines yet, so a lot of this came through means of just having a neighbor, just getting lucky and watching it that way. So that was mostly old WWF stuff. Like I said, MSG shows from the 70s. I would just watch tons of those and a lot of WCW, NWA. And he told me about other feds, but he didn't really have a lot of it. So then it was a few years later, in the early 90s, through the internet, and there was also a guy who worked at a convenience store near my house who was a fan, where I found out about trading tapes and getting involved in that. And I got on a mailing list, and then I just started getting in tons of things. So I went back in time and started getting Georgia and World Class and Watts and all that stuff.
Can you also say...
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. Great stuff. What those three promotions specifically, Georgia, Bill Watts over Mid-South, and WCCW, what do you think their impact on the wrestling business was?
Well, I think with World Class, if you ever watch it, even on 24/7, you can see that it seems like it's ahead of its time. I mean, a lot of that stuff was shot in 82, 83, but it has like a modern effect on it. You know, I mean, just like I said, the way they shot it, just the presentation, I think, later, you know, they've even said that later than Vince and different people copied it. As you've seen from Watts, it looked like WCW stole a lot of the angles. One angle I remember is the spray painting, which no one realized. You know, when the NWO would spray paint guys, kids in school and everyone used to tell them, oh my God, this is so innovative. But they just stole that right from directly in Mid-South. Eddie Gilbert and his stable were laying guys out and spray painting them exactly like that. You know, so I think that was kind of the effect. It was just taking some little bit of angles and different production values and things like that. I guess that's kind of how I see it.
Mid-South?
Well, Mid-South was the one I was saying more in terms of the angles and a little bit of the violence. I mean, ECW, I think, was definitely influenced by Mid-South because just kind of the wildness and the craziness, probably maybe more of a combination of like Memphis and Mid-South was kind of, I think, where ECW was born out of.
That's
and I think you had asked about Georgia. You know, that kind of just flowed into WCW. It was more just the match style. That was where you got a lot more of the technical stuff. Similar to what I remember from some Florida tapes where it was more focused on the technical and not as crazy as the angles and wild storylines.
This is my own personal question because Dave Meltzer in one of his recent interviews said this, saying that the dying days of Georgia were just as bad as the dying days of Nitros and the current state of TNA. Is that true?
I just can't remember as much because, keep in mind, I was watching it on tape. I wasn't watching it live.
Okay.
So it was kind of hard for me to tell because it was a few years later.
All right.
He's probably right. Obviously, he would know better than me. But, because it was tape in your mind, you really can't think that way. I don't know if you kind of see what I'm saying, but...
I can understand.
Because you really don't know when you're watching it years later.
Okay, then also, for those that do not know, when I'm looking at you now and your icon on the computer screen and your channel, basically, talk about ECW.
Oh jeez, I didn't realize I still had that icon, but yeah, I think I came across that probably in 94, I don't remember if it was exactly if it was through a tape. I'm pretty sure it was, or late '93, kind of around when they started changing over. Because at first it was really indie and really just crappy. It was they were bringing in guys like Don Morocco, just trying to get a lot of legends, Snooker, Road Warrior, Hawk, and all those guys were terrible. I mean, they had a main event once with Sandman and Morocco, and it's still regarded as like one of the worst matches in the history of the business.
Jeez.
So they really got off to a bad start. But then when they brought in,
No, I was just commenting on how
I
horrible.
thought he said something. No, when they brought in, yeah, it was shit. So then when they brought in Taz and Sabu, it was a real change of pace. I mean, they were in the crowd, they were going through tables, and it was completely like nothing that had been seen before. But even though it was a change, it still wasn't bringing in a lot of new fans yet. But by like '94, it really got a big facelift. I think that's when Heyman got a lot more influence, and they were using different music now, and the lighting was different, and it was a different atmosphere in the building. So at that time, it was really drawing in a lot more people, and I think that's when I went from just casually watching it to really like being obsessed with it. Like, goddamn, I have to see this every week. I have to get my hands on these tapes. After I watch a show, I'd be thinking about it for like 2 hours, which is like kind of embarrassing, but that's just like how obsessed I was with it. And where I was going over like things I saw in my head, like angles and like how things were going to plan out. That's just the way it was. I mean, it just really reeled you in, which is a real thing that's missing today. You feel very removed when you watch it today, and when you watched it then, you felt very included. So that was a big thing.
Can you talk about those trips you used to take to the arena to watch the shows? You told me, and I was mystified.
Yeah, well, there's a little more to the story. I mean, basically I found this deal where you could take a bus from Queens to Philly.
Hold on. All right, so you told me about your trips to the arena, and when I heard them, I was just like mystified. So, like, explain those trips you used to take to ECW.
Well, it's kind of funny just because it took a lot of work, but that's just how my mind worked back then. It was just always focusing on getting to shows and revolving around wrestling. So basically what I found was a deal where you could take a bus from Queens to Philly, and Queens was about an hour from me. So I had a friend whose cousin was 21, basically convinced him to take us into Queens to take the bus. I got 4 friends together, and all my friends, including myself, all had to lie to their parents saying they were sleeping over at the other person's house.
Wow.
So obviously at that age, no one was going to let their kids do that.
Wow.
So that's how we pulled it off. Until one day they all ran into each other in a grocery store, and then that became a big issue. But I guess that's a story for another time, but that was definitely a problem. But anyway, so we did that, and it was a cool deal because a lot of the buses had wrestlers on it. So, I mean, one time I literally sat with New Jack the entire ride down, just him and I next to each other. RVD was there, Spike Dudley was on there, Big Vito, who at the time was Skull Von Crush, and he did other characters in WCW. I mean, just anyone, really. Other than, like, Raven and Sandman, pretty much everyone was on there. Francine was on there. So it was just a crazy time. I mean, when New Jack was on there, he was pounding beers and just crazy stuff, So it was cool. They would bring on tapes and we'd watch old matches, and just a good time. Whenever the bus would pull over, people would get in the parking lot and start wrestling, just because they were all excited about the show. And the crazy thing about it was so cheap. It was $40 for the bus and for a ticket. That was basically like 4 rows from the ring.
Wow.
So I did that for a couple of years to get to the shows.
And what time would you get home after these excursions?
Well, after the deal got blown up about sleeping over, then I wouldn't get home till 3:30.
Jesus. And you did
which
this
was not good if you're a kid, as you can imagine.
How many times a month did you do
But the way I looked at it, I just wasn't missing the shows. They were once a month, but we couldn't go every month because this guy was 21, and he had things going on, so he couldn't always take us. But I would say if there were 12 shows, like a year, we definitely hit 8 to 10. I think that was good enough for me. I was so desperate one time I just paid for his ticket. That's how desperate I was to go. He said he didn't have the money. I said, I don't care, I'm paying for your ticket. I just paid for it.
Now,
I was so stupid I didn't even ask for him to pay me back. I just didn't care.
Wow. Now, this was this your favorite promotion of all time?
I don't know. I mean, there's been times where WWF rather was great too, but I guess ECW in my mind had a really good run. from '96 to like '98. I thought it was awesome. So probably, I mean, it probably has like a special spot in me just because of all the shows I went to and from what you've heard the trouble I went to get down there. Yeah, I guess I could say probably my favorite. Yeah.
Now, when did you know that it was coming to an end?
I started to get down on it in like '98. I just felt like I don't know. I can't describe. Just didn't have that feeling that it had prior. I don't know what it was because I just don't know. Like when they started pushing guys like Just Incredible, almost like there was anything wrong with him, but it just seemed to lose that feel. And I guess probably Heyman was burnt out. You were seeing a lot of just recycling old matches and just continuing to do them, and it wasn't as storyline driven as it once was. They were just doing the same matches over and over, and they were good matches, but there wasn't much behind them. I mean, in '99, 2000, Jerry Lynn faced on pretty much every show. Now, for me, that got old. Looking back now, it holds up because they were great matches, but at the time when you were just seeing the same thing month after month, it really started boring me. And I thought the TNN deal was a disaster. I mean, I didn't really enjoy many of those shows, and I even stopped going to the live shows pretty much about a month or two after the TNN deal.
Wow.
So I'd say when I officially knew it was going downhill, where I stopped caring was like October '99.
Really? Jesus. And so when it died, were you like, did it take you a while to like, what? Did you like take a break from wrestling, or it was like, you expected this for a long time, let's just go back to WWE?
Yeah, expect. Yeah, expect. It honestly didn't faze me. It fazed me like a couple weeks later, just because then you start reflecting back. Like, man, there were some good times. Like the day when I read it, it wasn't like I just stopped short. Like, oh my god. Like it'd be different if that was ROH today. I would have a much different reaction because they're still building momentum. There's still positive things going on. And when ECW did that, there was not a lot going on that I was looking forward to. It wasn't like I couldn't wait for the next pay-per-view or anything. Just business as usual. Just went on, watched Raw, and that was it.
What, in your opinion, was the last great thing ECW did?
Jeez, I gotta think. I think there were moments, like the moment when Sandman returned was maybe the last great moment, but I don't think it was like some genius booking, it was just very simple. He returned, and that was it. I have to think of like the last like great, like maybe angle or something. Jeez. God, there's just not much. I guess maybe the use of the Dudleys. I don't know how much you watched of it, but the way the Dudleys were portrayed in '99, they were probably one of the hottest acts in wrestling, and obviously WWF saw it that way because they brought them in. So I know it's not really like a storyline per se, but the last great thing that I really enjoyed on the edge of my seat was just seeing the Dudleys every week between the promos, the matches, and just the whole package.
And what was the greatest match in ECW history? I know that's hard in your opinion.
Yeah, it's hard because it's a lot different than ROH. A lot of the shows weren't based on match quality. I mean, when you'd go to a live show, you may not even have a 3-star match, but you would end up having a great time just because of the flow of it and just all the different things that happened. If we're talking like the greatest technical match from start to finish, I mean, it's probably one of the RVD Jerry Lynn matches. Maybe there was a Living Dangerously pay-per-view. Yeah. I don't think that match made the WWF DVDs. I think they used the Hardcore Heaven match.
Yeah.
But it was one of those deals where they did the 5 more minutes thing, and they kept going and ended up being amazing. And that's one of Taz and Sabu had a pretty awesome match too on that show, so that would go up there. The double tables match was really brutal with the Pitbulls, Raven and Stevie.
Yeah.
I'm just naming a few of the top ones. Al Snow and Ben Wild, like one of the best technical matches. Much as the fans didn't care about it, but from a technical standpoint, obviously some of those 2 out of 3 Falls matches with Guerrero and Malenko were really good. There was a 4-way at Heat Wave, really long with Shane Douglas, Jericho, Pitbull 2.
That one's on the. That one's on.
It was Scorpio and someone else.
That's on one of the WWE DVDs. The 4-way. The 4-way.
They put it on, yeah. That was really good. It was long, but it was really good. So.
What about
those are kind of some of them, like I said, when you compare.
Rey and Psychosis.
Which match did you say?
Rey Mysterio and Psychosis.
Oh, those were good. Yeah, the Mexican Death Match made the DVDs. Yeah, that was really good. Sandman one time had a Stairway to Hell match that's worth checking out with Sabu. It was called House Party '98. If anyone ever wants to look that up. Sabu got so beat up in that match they taped his jaw shut. His jaw shattered on the guardrail, and that was really nasty. And as Sabu is, he's a freak, and he kept going. So that's one worth checking out. I mean, in the '90s, '99, 2000, they had a lot of good matches on pay-per-view. Tajiri was there, super crazy. So people ever want to look stuff up, I would also recommend checking out those matches. A few more just came to mind quickly. All the matches with Tanaka and Mike Awesome. Pretty much on like every pay-per-view they stole the show.
Also, after October '99, you said in your opinion that's when it started. That's when you started That's when it started to fall with you. Did you still like from October '99 to its death? Did you still make these trips to the arena?
No, only a few times. If friends really wanted to go, I went. I think after that, I maybe did one pay-per-view, which was near me, and one arena show, and that was it. I was really down on it. I mean, I was watching it, like Friday night. I never watched any wrestling live, by the way, so I'd always watch it on tape, so maybe Friday night or Saturday I'd watch it. I mean, it was like watching TNA now. I'd watch it in like 15 minutes, just fast forward,
So, after ECW died, did you have... I know for you said that it really kind of killed you off in '99, but did you ever have... When was the next time you had that attachment to promotion? If you ever had that attachment ever again?
That's a good question. I mean, ROH maybe would be close. I mean, it's so hard to say because ECW was kind of the first. Mm-hmm. So you always view the first different. Like you always hear people say, back in the day, this was so great. And really it's just because that was your first. And that seems to happen a lot in wrestling. No matter what age people are, you just hear them say, man, it was so good back then, because they were younger. So I do think ROH is close because, I mean, there's just a lot. There's a lot to be attached to. There's a lot to be drawn to with them. So I would say that's kind of filled the void.
When? Like, was it like, don't tell me it was like 2002. Like, when did it start to be like that?
Yeah, I mean, I followed it from day one, even before. And when they announced they were starting something, I was into it. But I don't think I was into it right away. It was more of a casual thing where the shows I would get, I would just watch kind of the main matches that were highly reviewed. And I wouldn't always sit through every show. But I would probably say maybe 2006, 2007 is where I really felt like this is kind of my number one promotion now, the one that I look forward to most.
All right. We'll get back to Ring of Honor, but let's head back in time. We've mentioned ECW, and you've always told me before how you thought WWE in the early 90s, that really is one of the worst periods in wrestling. Just talk about that period for you, from like early 90s to like 95, I would say. Yeah,
maybe more like early mid-90s. I don't think like 90 and 91 were all that bad.
All right.
And maybe even 92. From how I remember, it was kind of like 93, 94, 95. Okay. I think were the worst. I mean, for example, if you were to watch Superstars, which used to be a fairly good show because they would do a good job of building angles to the big pay-per-views. Now it was the Mantars, Bastion Boogers, all these crazy characters that you heard about, we actually had to sit through. And some of them were actually good workers. But for whatever reason, Vince just positioned them in those type of roles. And I mean, there was just nothing to look forward to. There's no big angles. Like I said, there was all these characters that nobody cared about. It was as corny, even more corny than now. Now at least that was bad, but trust me, this was worse. There was just, there was nothing other than Bret Hart. I'm trying to think. Really, Michaels, I don't think Michaels was at that position yet. He was more in the lower IC mid-card range. But really, there was Bret. I mean, that was like it. They started doing a deal with Hogan where he was teaming with Beefcake, feuding with DiBiase and IRS, who was Mike Rotunda, and that was just awful. Wow. Obviously, Hogan's stuff with Yokozuna and Bret was awful. I mean, just, it was bad. I don't know how else to say it. It was bad.
You've told me before, but comment on your feelings on Bret Hart, actually, in the early 90s. By 94, I would say.
Well, I knew he was a good wrestler. There was no doubt about it at that time. But for whatever reason, I was just down on him. I mean, I just felt like he was always winning. And because I was such a big Owen Hart fan, when they really started that feud, I started despising Bret. Because in my mind, he was always going to beat Owen clean. So that's kind of what really made me turn on him hard.
And tell the story about the candle.
Well, it's a little embarrassing, but I guess that's the fun of this interview. So basically, if anyone's Catholic, when you go to church, you're kind of encouraged to light candles. The purpose of it is if someone in your family is dying of cancer, you light a candle, which says everyone's praying for them. If there's a natural disaster, you light a candle, I'm sure, so you get the point.
Yeah.
So my mom was always on me, why don't you go light a candle? And I didn't care. I didn't even want to be in church to begin with. While I'm sitting there, I was always just thinking of wrestling because WCW Saturday Night was on at the same time I was at church. That always pissed me off. Church would end 6:30 and Saturday night would start 6:05, and I would just be heated sitting there in church. And then right when we get out, I'd just rush home. But anyway, so this was the night before WrestleMania 10. And my mom looked at me and she's just like, just light a candle for something. She's always getting on me. There's got to be something you want. So in my head, I'm like, all right, fine. So she gave me the 50 cents. I went up and I lit the candle for Owen to beat Brett. I just said, please, Vince, WWF, do not have Brett beat him. And that was what I lit the candle for. I came back and she said, what'd you light the candle for? And I told her, and she was freaking hot as hell. And a lot of controversy, one of the most controversial things I've done.
Praying to God so that Owen Hart beats Brett.
That was the candle I lit. I sat there on that little deal where you kneel down and did the sign of the cross, and I just said, WWF, don't do it. Don't make Owen lose. I know you're going to have Brett win. I was just like, don't do it. So on a side note, if you don't mind, fast forward a couple years later, it was the final game of the season, Jets-Lions, and it was a win-and-you're-in type deal.
Yeah. So
that was the second time I did the candle, and the Jets freaking lost, so I ended up going 1-1 with candles. That was the last time I did it.
That's your career of candle records.
Yeah, I've done it twice. I'm 1-1.
Maybe if you do one again, hoping the WWE gets better, maybe then, we'll start having a 50% chance of luck.
Except I haven't been to church in forever. I kind of grew out of that phase.
All right. Okay, so before we continue with that, though, was Owen, your relationship with Owen, continue like that for the rest of the 90s? Were you always still really high on him? Or was it really more just because of your slight resentment towards Brett?
No. To me, if someone were asking my favorite wrestler of all time, it would be that period where he was doing the King of Heart gimmick. That was my favorite of all time. So I would say from there until whenever that ended, it may have been about 2 years later.
Yeah.
I mean, after that, I still liked him, but it wasn't like that obsession where I was like, this guy's just my favorite,
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be like that whole run, because they ended up having a pretty long run, because they came back to it later. They did it, they got away from it. Then when they brought in back Neidhart and Bulldog, they kind of went back to it. So I stayed with, he was still my favorite, and even later, when he was doing Nation and that kind of stuff, I almost kind of felt bad for him. So it was just like comedy act.
Yeah.
But I always still liked him and respect him, but not to that level. But yeah, definitely my favorite all time, without a doubt.
Did you see the show where the tragedy occurred live?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
So that was
really tough to watch. Really.
I got you.
The other problem with that was because I watched with a bunch of people and they always assumed everything was a work. So you had people laughing, you had people just for whatever reason wasn't sinking in. I had to keep telling people no, this is legit. And they were just like, oh, come on, they're going to show it soon. He's going to come back. I just kept shaking my head like, man, they're making this even worse for me. It's like, this shit is for real.
Did you not like the stuff they did on Raw the next day?
I've talked to a lot of people in school about it that day. I clearly remember, and I don't know, it was a tough spot. I mean, I think in retrospect, it's easy to say you don't like it. At the time, it's so hard to think. I kind of, at the time, was saying it'd probably be better if they didn't do something like that, but it was a ratings war at the end of the day, so
yeah, they
knew they were going to pop a huge rating, and that's what they did. But, I mean, look what they did with Pillman's wife. That was even worse.
Yeah, I got you.
They put her on TV with the 6 kids on the couch after the guy dies, the night after.
Yeah, man.
That was worse, but typical Vince.
And the Benoit stuff was a little different, but it's kind of around the same point.
Yeah, you just got to be careful with that stuff when someone dies, just to not exploit it. And it's just, I don't know. Even the 9/11 thing bothered me this year. I didn't hear many people complaining about that. I was almost offended by that garbage they did.
What? That video package?
It was all about them.
Yeah. I remember Dave complained about it.
That's like if I donate to a charity, but I just keep bragging that I donated.
Yeah.
I just don't understand that. How do you make it all about you?
That's what it all comes down. But to be fair, this isn't. I'm not exactly saying it was okay, but I think in Vince's mind, he thinks it's still okay, even though it's not. But I think he thinks that it's still okay to brag about it and make it all about you because you still did it.
That's always, yeah, but that's just always the case with everything.
Yeah, I got it.
They had to get it out there. They were the first to have a national whatever gathering. That's just such BS. I mean, just show a tribute video and that's it. Not all that crap, but whatever. No point in getting hot over it now.
So you were while you still said that it wasn't very good from 93 to 95-ish, were you still like a really big fan, or since ECW was kind of taking off at that time, did you kind of distance yourself from the WWE?
No, never. Still a big fan. Look, I still watch now, so what does that tell you?
Well, would you consider yourself a big fan now?
No, but I still watch every week. But my point is, I never distanced myself. I mean, there were times where maybe I'd be a little less interested, but I always made it a point to watch, and I was still into it. I mean, when the Owen stuff started, that was good. Trying to think I remember they brought in Backlund. That was like so-so. I liked Backlund, but the role was kind of weird. It was kind of strange seeing him win the belt and then lose it in 10 seconds to Nash the next day.
Yeah.
It was a good storyline with Brett, though, so that was something I was into. And there was some good. I remember having some good tag team matches at that time as well. But really, yeah, other than that, I mean, one of the Survivor Series was like Doink, Dink, Wink, Pink against like Lawler and all these other midgets, and that was kind of one of the featured matches.
Yeah,
so that kind of tells you, But yeah, I mean, it wasn't a peak level of interest. It was more like kind of like now. I guess you watch out of habit just because you're a fan. But I wasn't like on the edge of my seat for anything they were doing.
When did the product start to get really good again in the 90s?
When they start to become really good again? Probably before most people think, because I remember I used to argue with friends about this, but I really thought it got good in like 96.
I got you.
Kind of, when lost, maybe like the middle part of 96 when Sid was in there and just, I remember he was feuding with Brett. It just became really more edgy. It didn't seem to catch on the edginess until later. I don't know, one time Brett said bullshit right on USA and they didn't bleep it. And that was after I think Sid beat him in a cage match where he took the belt from.
That's the one where he shoved Vince to the ground?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that on YouTube.
So yeah, I really enjoyed 96. It was really a time where then my interest level was high. I remember times in school I was just thinking, man, I can't wait for Raw to be on tonight. I was really pumped up for it. And that's kind of always how I gauge my interest, if I'm thinking about it that day. Like today, I mean, it doesn't even cross my mind.
That hot period, which most people say from 98, you say from 96 to 2001, when did it die? Did it die with Austin turning heel? Did it die with the invasion angle? When for you did it kind of go back? Not into shit, I don't want to say shit, but it wasn't at its peak anymore.
Yeah, for me, 99. I was getting tired of just... I mean, for me, I just don't like seeing the same thing over and over again. And other people, they were big Austin fans, so they had no problem just continuing to see him in The Rock. But for me, I need change quick. I can't just see the same thing for too long, no matter how good the guy is. And I just started getting down on it. If you were watching Raw every week, it was... You could write the ending. Stunner, stunner, stunner. 10 guys, stunners all over the place. It was just the same thing, every week, stunners. And the fans popped for it. So it wasn't much I could say. They were still doing a big rating, and the crowds were still popping for it. But me personally, I wasn't popping for it. I was just getting bored with it. I just felt like it was the same thing. It is weird, though, because when you look back at it today, it seems better, just because today's so bad. But I clearly remember at the time just getting down on it. So I would say the later part of 99, I was just losing my interest in wrestling again, even though I was watching.
How were I remember we described this to you one time. How were the Madison Square Garden house shows with Austin at his peak at that time?
Insane.
Like, didn't you want to tell me people hid behind, like, Titantron or something?
I actually did one time.
He stood behind the Titantron?
I sat behind it the whole show. That was the only seats in there.
You couldn't see?
You could kind of see. Actually, the funny thing was Kane and Undertaker were in the midst of a big feud, and they were brawling up the entire ramp. And because we were so high up, we saw behind the Titantron and then the little backstage part between the curtain and then the locker room. So it looked probably about a 5-foot area.
Wow. Wow.
So they're just pounding the shit out of each other, and the second they stop, they both like shake hands and do like a not a fist pump or whatever, like a shoulder bump type thing. And I just thought, even though it was fake, I just thought like, man, this is kind of really weird to see. Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
it was my friend's dad and about 4 of us, and we were just into always going to live shows, and we didn't have tickets in advance, and that was all there were. There were about $10 for those seats.
Okay, that's not so bad.
It was insane. The reactions Austin would get when he would come out. Like today, if Cena first comes out, he may get a good reaction, but the second time he comes out, you always notice it's lower.
Yes.
Never with Austin. And the stunners were even more insane. He could stun 10 guys, and it would be equally the volume for each stunner.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
now back to kind of rewinding back a little bit to '97. A theory that you hold, which no one else. Well, people talk about it, but you.
I already know where you're going.
Yes, come on.
It's going to embarrass me.
You knew I was going to talk about it.
Because it's going to embarrass me. Because look, when you're the only person in the world that has one view, it's time to probably get off that view, you know?
Look, but you've been believing it since the day of. So go ahead, give your account of the Montreal Screwjob and how it is a work.
Fine. I will say, as of today, it's impossible for me to stick to my original view.
Yeah.
But at the time, I'll just give you my thought process, and I stayed with it for a long time because I looked at it a number of ways. Number one, why it was a work, again, at the time. It made sense on a lot of levels. One, it got Brett out of there without having a job clean. Two, set the stage for the McMahon heel turn. And three, it really set the stage for this this new era, this more edgier attitude thing, because obviously that was a realistic storyline. And I remember reading in the Torch before that Pat Patterson went on record and saying the match was going to end, and this was the direct quote, a schmoz, he called it. So after I saw that, I thought, well, this is a schmoz, right? It's a complete mess. So to me, everything signaled work. He's destroying cameras. I mean, the cameras don't pan away or anything. They just continue to air that. Like in my mind, if that's a shoot, they're not videotaping him destroying all that property. And then the shiner from when he punched Vince. I was just thinking in my head, like, how many fights I've seen, how many friends I've seen get to fight. No one walks away with like shiners, you know what I mean? What do you do? Like hit him like so perfect that Vince had like a perfect ring around his eye, and now he's gonna cut the promo. To me, just every little thing set the stage that it was gonna just make for a good storyline, and I also thought it would set a nice stage for when he would come back. I figured after his deal was up with WCW, he was gonna come back, have a huge storyline with Vince, and then it would be like that big giant payoff.
Well, you also
Trying to think what else I had. I had a lot of things. I argued with a guy at a convenience store that worked near my house for like hours about this.
Yeah, that he destroyed hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment and they didn't stop him.
At the time, I was saying that too. Yeah, I think I've told you that. That was part of my theory as to how can that be a shoot.
They kept the A&E cameras there. You said that as well.
Yeah, everything was perfect. Cameras were perfectly there. Everything was lined up perfectly, and I just stood by work. I was the only person saying it, and even 5 years later, I stood by it. And at that time, there was nobody left saying it. People just said I was nuts for even insinuating that, especially with all the stuff that Dave Meltzer had on it. But I just always under the belief if it's on TV, it's fake, and especially something that convenient, cameras get it, sets for a future angle. Like everything just made sense to be 100% work, and especially the way the way Michaels was acting, just to me, just almost a little over dramatic at times when they did that, and I just thought, this has to be a work, and I thought Brett would agree to that, having it go down like that, because it would make him a hero. Brett's so smart, he would know that if that angle went down like that, he would come out the hero. He wouldn't come out looking like the fool. So I figured he'd sign up for that. If there was no other way to drop the title, he would say, you know what, I'll sign up for this. This makes sense.
Have you seen the Brett Shawn DVD?
No, have it on pre-order from Amazon, so I will definitely be watching that. I'm sure that will expose me even worse.
Yes, just from what I've heard, supposedly. But
look, I can take a loss on that. I'm wrong. What can I say?
Not a lot of people can say that.
I mean, I will say I still think my defense was very logical and sound. It wasn't just some wacky, crazy defense. It wasn't like some crazy conspiracy. I mean, I think I had a lot of valid responses to counters, rather.
All right, moving forward a little bit. 99 started to suck. Well, not suck, but you kind of got tired of it. when did it kind of pick up steam again? Or was it just like that, 99 down to 2011?
Well, I think I was at a weird age, too, because when you're kind of hitting, like, I mean, what was I, maybe then, I don't know, like 18, 19, 20, 21, you just kind of start to get into other stuff, and it's almost harder to stay focused when it's bad. So that may have been part of it. I think 2002 I really started getting into it. Both shows when maybe they did the brand thing, and SmackDown was just having like tons of great matches every week, and I think Raw was a much weaker show. If I remember right, it was like Bradshaw and Bubba Dudley and
Triple H and Kane. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, there was not much going on Raw, but SmackDown was really good. I mean, Edge was finally coming into his own, which was fun to watch. Angle. I think Brock came up in 2002, so
yes.
I started going to shows again in 2002, which I just thought of now. So because between 99 and 2002, I really didn't go to many shows. Wow. And I've always been a live show guy. I've been to a zillion shows.
I got you. And
SummerSlam 2002 I was at, so that shows you my 2002.
That's an awesome show.
Yeah, that was a great time live.
So when did the product for you get back to that 93 through 95 period where this just sucks? When did that? I mean, I know you defend the company a lot, but when has it really sucked?
I don't know why I do that, by the way. I guess I try to be the voice of reason, even sometimes when it's ridiculous. Although today you won't see me be the voice of reason.
Oh yeah, definitely not. But just what do you remember? Like, was it a year? Was it an event?
Yeah. Well, put it this way: since we trace back to '87 of May when I started watching. Since then, I've never missed a week in my entire life.
Wow.
Never even missed a show. Like Raw, SmackDown, seen every show. Pay-per-view, seen every one. However, 2006 when they did that DX stuff, I sat in my bed that night and I said, I'm not watching this shit anymore. I can't watch it.
Wow.
And it was like midnight, and I was like, fuck it, I just gotta watch it. And then I went back and I just fast forwarded and I watched it real quick. But that was the closest I ever came. That was the worst for me. That was the absolute worst shit. I just could not stand that garbage. It was horrible. It was worse than PG. The cockadoodle, whatever that crap was they were always doing, with the rooster, and it was just horrible. The way Spirit Squad was used to, if you followed some of them in OVW, a few of them were really talented kids.
Yeah.
Obviously, Dolph Ziggler you've seen today, Ken Doane, Johnny Jeter may have been the best out of all of them, and look how they were used, so that was frustrating to see. Mike Mondo, yeah.
I got you.
It was very frustrating. That was the worst. I believe it was 06. If I'm wrong, correct me, but I'm pretty sure
it was.
That's...
So you thought that DX was worse than the 09 DX?
But equally as bad, or if I had to pick, yeah, I would say that one was worse, but they were both awful.
All right. And what... And in your history and knowledge of watching the WWE since '87, you told me that last week's Raw was the worst Raw of all time.
Yeah, maybe not the most. It depends how we're grading it. If we're going to say what was the most boring Raw of all time, it probably wasn't last week. But if you're going to look at key factors in deciding what's the worst show, it's a landslide because nothing made sense. It was actually counterproductive. It set certain characters backwards. It set storylines backwards. It showed you that it's completely pointless to invest any time, any thought in any storyline. They have no idea where anything's going. And all that was very transparent from that one show. I've never seen a show that sent off that much warning all in one night.
Wow.
Put it this way, after that night, and I had already been down on Punk for the last few weeks. I said to someone on G-Chat when I was watching it, I was just like, dude, Punk sucks. I can't even watch him anymore. It was just so embarrassing. And by saying he sucks, I don't mean his character sucks. I don't mean he sucks.
I got you.
That just, even that came in on that show. I was just tired of seeing him, tired of seeing just the whole thing. So, worst show.
When did he start dying down for you? Night of Champions or after that?
I mean, I know a lot of people were happy when he came back for the SummerSlam thing, but I really thought, for me, that killed him off because, again, he's just another babyface with zero credibility.
I thought the same when he came back.
I just feel like you can't be a babyface and have no credibility. He's not Cena yet for me, but he really is close. Because I just can't trust anything he says. He doesn't like Triple H. Now he's buddies with him. He hates this company. He's not coming back. He comes back. He comes back because he's coming back to bring change. I haven't seen any change. If anything, it changed worse. He
Yeah.
did bring change. He made it worse. The company regressed.
Nice.
You just can't be. For me, it's infuriating. You can't be a babyface and never, ever have any credibility or any truth to anything you say. All these guys, other than Randy Orton, he's the one guy where if he says something, for the most part, this dude's gonna back it up. But
But
Cena and Punk, I mean, my God.
yeah, I gotcha.
I mean, I know I'm probably in the early stages where most people aren't down on Punk yet, but if he keeps this up, I think people are just gonna be tired of his character.
Very interesting. We never hear a perspective like that on Punk, and I agree with it. I mean, I don't hate him. I still like him, but I do agree that his character has fallen off quite a bit, and I was not happy when he came back. So I can see
Mm.
points from there.
What's interesting about him right now?
Nothing.
He's talented. Again, I'm not knocking the talent. I'm knocking the character. What is anything good about the character right now? He comes out. It's boring. He talks about nothing. The lines he's given are horrible. It's a complete 180 of what he was doing only a few months ago.
I gotcha.
Triple H has killed him. Them being aligned is ridiculous.
We can put him under the list of people that Triple H has killed.
His character didn't trust Triple H 3 weeks ago. Now he's tagging with him?
Yeah, you're right. Let's digress from the current product.
Yeah, please, because I can feel my blood pressure going up just talking about this.
Don't worry, we can slow it back down by talking about TNA.
Oh, well.
Explain your I don't even want to say relationship, just your viewing. Like, explain what TNA is to you ever since its inception.
Well, I watched it from day one.
Yeah, but
The first pay-per-view, I was there with it, and I watched pretty much ever since. I mean, there were times where I'd be lazy, I would just delete it off my DVR or fast forward through it really quick, but I've always stayed with it, and it's just a frustrating company. I mean, when you see a company that's that deep, at times it's had one of the deepest rosters, and to just go nowhere is just almost unfathomable. To have that much talent and go absolutely nowhere, and now to even go backwards is just mind-boggling. And it's another company where same deal. I mean, you see a storyline, you can't waste time thinking about it, putting any interest in it. It used to be always fun debating storylines, like what's going to happen next. You can't waste your time doing that with them. They have no idea where anything's going. Seeing the same, I mean, the Sting and the Angle, and I like Angle, but still, Angle and Hardy, it's awful. I just
when
lost for words.
around when you first saw it, what'd you think of it? Like, I know some people said it's okay, but it's not. Some people said it was awesome. Some people said, it's terrible. What did you think when you first saw it in 0203?
Yeah, I liked it. And one of the things I really liked about it was the separation of the X Division, which I really thought they should have gone back to, where it was almost like a separate entity. You didn't have X Division guys getting squashed in handicap matches by main event guys. You had the X Division. They did their deal. You had the tag guys. You had the main event guys. It was all separate, almost like old school WWF. Except the X Division was the Intercontinental Division, if you want to draw an analogy there. And I really liked that. I thought that was well done. I mean, I really liked how everything was separate. And the X Division matches, the X Division belt meant something. I remember when Chris Sabin won it as a heel. It was just like really cool. Did he beat
He beat
Michael Shane maybe?
Yeah.
And it was just like, it had value to it. I mean, I just remember thinking, man, this is cool. And Jerry Lynn and AJ Styles were having good matches. Even when they brought in D'Lo Brown to be in X Division, it was good. I mean, the main eventers, they were so-so. At first, it was Shamrock, I think R-Truth, obviously Jarrett.
Raven.
Well, when Raven came in, I think that spiked interest. I remember a lot of people being into the Raven-Jarrett feud because they built that really well.
Yeah, and the AJ Styles stuff with Jarrett.
Good. Yeah.
I want to.
The one downer, sorry to cut you off there, about TNA at that time, they really started getting into this dumb thing of having these giant stables.
Yeah, the SEX.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had SEX, they had Jarrett's stable, and then they had an ECW stable that has always lasted like a month. And then they killed it off. It was New Jack, Sandman, Just Incredible, pretty much everybody. And that got killed off. But at that time still, like I said, 2002, 2003, kind of 2004, I was liking TNA. And I wouldn't say I was in love with it, but I was definitely liking it and enjoying it.
05, were you still liking it?
I'm trying to remember what 05 was. That when Christian came in?
That was but that was the end of '05. Like that whole year was more based around, it was about Raven. Raven was champion. AJ was champion. The X Division was thriving. AJ Daniels Joe. AJ Daniels Joe. AJ Joe.
All right, so yeah, I think I was kind of liking it then until maybe shortly after Christian came in.
Was that just because you're not the only one. Most people will say that the company started to go down in '09. I personally say '07. But I have.
Wait for '09, no.
Well, that's what some people said. I personally do agree I say '07, but some people I have heard say Christian coming in. Is that because of Christian, or is that just because you thought it was a representation of, them going and bringing guys that are not their guys?
Well, it's weird. I was for Christian coming in, and I actually got a bunch of people together that night to watch that pay-per-view, which was unheard of because most of my buddies were already done with wrestling, so. That was the night Eddie Guerrero died, I believe, too.
Yes.
I was for him coming in, but for whatever reason, when he came in, it was like the change now. It wasn't about the guys that it was before. Now it was more like it is now. Ex-WWE guy, he's going to be the focus. And he wasn't bad at it, but it was just, it started taking away because now you would have no problem beating an X Division guy, which, like I said, was the one thing I liked about the X Division before that. It was separate. Because to me, when you start killing off those guys by main eventers, you're just telling everyone, these guys can't hang. Who are these guys? And that started when Christian came in. So I wouldn't pin it on him. That wouldn't be fair because I think the dude worked hard. But for me, my interest level was when you say 2009, it was way down before that. So going into '06, I was still watching, but I was already down.
'06 is kind of when I started watching again. Because with Team 3D and Jay Lethal. Jay Lethal really got me back into the company. So I wouldn't say '06. '07 for me is really when it faltered off. And now with all the events in TNA, Robert Roode losing the title, James Storm winning the title. I mean, Robert Roode not winning, James Storm winning. How people say it all the time, but how long can you possibly think this company can still run?
Well, I'm not one of those who wishes death upon TNA. Actually, I don't wish it at all. I don't wish death on any company. So I don't know how long. I mean, the thing about wishing the death on these companies, why I don't like to do that. For one, I still think it's going to sound crazy, but I still think it's good to have two companies out there. I know it's not competition. I know it's pretty lousy right now, but I still think if you just look back to when it's one company and nothing, it'll get even worse. So at least for the 1.5 million fans that need something, they have that. And number two, the thing why I don't like to see companies die is there's a lot of people who are affected who you don't realize. There's production. The economy's terrible right now. You have production people. They're not guaranteed to get another job right away. Some of these divas, they're not getting jobs. They don't look like models or anything. They're not getting signed by WWE. They don't have modeling deals. So they're going to be out. They're not making money on the indies. Even guys like Bobby Roode. I mean, realistically, if they close today, what's this guy doing?
Working on Wall Street.
I mean, you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So that's why if they want to stay in business, good for them. As to how much longer, geez, I mean, at this rate, you really think the plug could get pulled any day. However, if the father is that hell-bent on having something for his daughter to try and work on and have a project, then I guess it's going to stick around for a while, but I mean, Hogan may single-handedly kill this thing.
He seems like he's on a mission to.
I mean, these decisions are just the absolute shits.
I asked you this after the pay-per-view, but now I'm going to ask it again. Do you think that decision to not give Roode the belt was the most, insulting pay-per-view decision from either company, ever?
The one that comes to recent memory would be that Survivor Series disaster with Cena, Nexus, and that whole mess from last year where they pushed so hard that Cena would join Nexus and or retire and all that other crazy stuff, and then he's out on Raw acting like a goofball the next night. Mm-hmm. I would say that's close. The thing with this one is, I mean, it basically tells you, don't get behind anyone. I mean, those video packages, I actually watched all the impacts leading up so I can speak on it. Those video packages were clearly telling you he was going to win.
Yeah.
At least in my eyes. I don't think there was any doubt, even in the company's eyes, that he was winning. I mean, those video packages were set to have him win and to have you go crazy when he wins. There's just no other way of doing it. You would never do that with the idea of him losing. It just would be completely ridiculous. So basically what that tells you is Why invest time in them building a guy? Why get into the build? Why get into the near falls in the match? You're not going to win anyway. Why bother?
I mean, it's not like a lot of people. I got a lot of messages saying, "Oh, it's no big deal. They'll feud. He'll get the title eventually. You know, this is all part of an angle with Kurt Angle." And then the next night, you know, James Storm wins in a minute.
I think that would be okay if it was done on smaller level pay-per-views, because I think then you could get away with building up to something. But I don't know how you do the first. Like, this is going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you'd have done, let's say, 2 pay-per-views ago, I'm just thinking off the top of my head quickly, you do a match, Rude, Angle, and they do that finish, right? So now Rude's going to want a clean rematch. Then maybe on the next pay-per-view, you have the opposite thing happen. Angle's foot's on the rope, Rude pins him, the ref counts, and now they're at a stalemate because they each have 1 win and both were a little dirty. So now you have Bound for Glory, your biggest thing of the year, and you do the final match. You show all that stuff in the highlights. Maybe you have an extra referee at ringside to make sure that doesn't happen. And then you build it with these videos. This is it. Angle versus Rude. No screwy finish. We got an extra ref. We got an enforcer. It's going to be clean down the middle. And then you just have Rude win. So then it would justify having this stuff happen beforehand. But how does it happen on the first time?
I don't know. Not good. Do you think you usually go with pay-per-view buy predictor? Do you think this came close to Joe Angle?
What was that one?
55,000 or 60,000.
I don't think Hogan has that kind of strength. No, I would say.
Do you think it could beat last year?
I don't think 30's out of the question.
Last year did 39.
I don't think there's enough fans anymore.
All right.
I just think every year, and I said this to someone the other day, I just think every year we have less and less fans. Hogan did a ton of media, so the only thing would be if he convinced those casuals to get on board. I mean, he did an insane amount of media, even here in New York.
Really?
So that would be the only way. But if it was just simply based off the TV, even though the TV was good, I just don't think there's enough people who are interested. So, gun to my head, I have to say a number. I'll say 35.
All right, that's fair. Now, let's kind of move away from TNA a bit because it seems like it's just not good to talk about. Let's talk about the comparison to TNA. We kind of glossed over it, but just very briefly, were you always... When did WCW fall for you? Like everyone else did?
I'm always bad with years, but I think it may have been like toward the end of 98 or going into 99.
All right.
Where you were seeing no progress. You were seeing guys just trading on top. Hogan, Luger, Nash, Hall. I'm sure you know the deal there.
Yeah.
Jericho actually was next to Owen Hart. That heel Jericho was my second favorite of all time.
Wow.
And I was really into that character, and I was really disappointed when it just went absolutely nowhere. The stuff with Goldberg never happened. I mean, I thought there was huge potential for that character. So, I mean, there was just, again, I'm a big fan of change, and there was no change. It was the same. Every week you were just circulating guys. The thing with Luger, amazing moment, right? I'm not a Luger fan. That was amazing. He wins the title, what, a week later, 2 weeks later? Gone, forgotten, someone else, next, move on. I mean, come on.
Yep.
So I started seeing through that. And I had a lot of fans, actually at that time, had turned on, and a lot of friends who had turned on WWF, and they were WCW guys. And I kept arguing with them saying, dude, this shit's worse, trust me. And they were all saying, look at the ratings. How can you tell me this is worse? Look at the ratings. And I kept saying, you'll see, this shit's worse. It's going nowhere. It's making no sense. I said, we got WWF over here. You got Austin, you got The Rock, you got now Mankind, you got a lot of different guys and new faces coming up. And even you have a deep undercard. Maybe the guys weren't the best wrestlers, but, for example, guys like the New Age Outlaws were over. I was at those live shows, and they were right there in terms of reactions with Austin and Rock.
Wow.
That's just a fact. I mean, those dudes were over. So say what you want about how they were as workers, but when you're that over, you can't deny that. And that's just how I looked at it. That you had one company with stars, and you had one company with, 100-year-old stars. And I just knew that crash was coming, despite the ratings. And I just clearly remember all these arguments I had with my friends. It used to just annoy me to no end, just how pro WCW they were.
All right, now we'll get to kind of what's saving professional wrestling right now with the indie scene. But I wanted to ask you, before we get to the indie scene, something kind of related to the indie scene is the backyard scene, and you seem to have some backyard experiences. So just go into that a little briefly.
Well, geez, it would be hours of stories. I'm trying to think of a quick way. First of all, I don't want to misinterpret it. Yeah, people think the wrong thing. When people hear backyard, they think light tubes and all that wild shit. None of that was going on here. I mean, at 6 years old, I was already wrestling, like backyard wrestling, but there was no tubes, no tables. Actually, the other day I was driving by the yard that I used to wrestle in. I was thinking of taking a picture of it since I know you edit these interviews. I'll see if I can snap a picture. But that's when it started. I was 6 years old, and my other friend was 6 years old, and I was Mr. Perfect, and he was Ultimate Warrior, and we'd wrestle right on the side of his house in his yard. We'd sit in the back of the bus because our stop was last, and when everyone got off, it was like a 5-minute ride from the second to last stop to ours, and we'd wrestle in the seats. We just wrestle every day. I mean, you talk about Cena having 300 matches a year. I think I worked a good 350 every day. Wow. Every day after school. And the crazy thing is, I was thinking about this the other day, that can you imagine two 6-year-olds giving each other DDTs?
Jeez.
I mean, you break someone's neck.
That was safe.
The weird thing was, this is a really ridiculous way to justify it, but the workers were so good back then that if you were smart enough and you watched, you taught yourself how to do it without. I mean, I never hurt anybody.
Really?
I mean, I was doing pile drivers all the time. No one ever got hurt.
Jesus.
I'm scared shit to think a 7-year-old today pile driving another 7-year-old. What would happen?
That'd be pretty bad.
And perfect plex was my move. I was always hitting this kid with the perfect plex, just going crazy. So anyway, that's how young it started. We just wrestled all the time. And then when we got older, maybe 8, 9, and we had bigger groups, we'd have more organized matches where I had a little notebook and we'd keep track of everything, and different guys would have names, and we'd have actual entrances, and we'd do that whole deal. And this went on for a long time, and then as I got older, we actually built a ring, and we had organized, even more organized. I don't think any real stories that stand out. Well, one thing is I had a friend's older brother who got into wrestling with us, and he had a finishing move called the gun. Mm-hmm. And the gun was a pretty crazy move. It was before, I think, even the pedigree was in mainstream wrestling. So you can picture it. He'd pedigree you, and when your head hit the ground, you would stay in that position. So he'd still be on his knees, and from there he would powerbomb you into a pin.
Wow. And
he would just bust the gun out of nowhere. And one time we were playing baseball in the front yard, and he stuck out behind me. He forearm clubbed me in the back and gunned me right there. And the big storyline was that no one ever kicked out of the gun. So he would just gun people, randomly. That was what he would always say. He'd be playing a video game, he'd come from behind you and just gun you and see if you could kick out.
Wow.
I was always getting gunned. He gunned his sister one time. As part of an angle. Because we had, I came up with this idea. They had a real grandmother they called Grammy. You know how Brian Alvarez has Granny? Well, she was Grammy.
Yeah.
And she would sit on her lawn chair and just watch us wrestle, and she didn't realize how dangerous it was. She just thought it was boys being boys. Mm-hmm. So I kind of made her the commissioner, where she would announce our big matches just to be funny. So she announced something with the sister one time, and then this guy John, he just attacked her and he gunned her right in front of her, and then grandma flipped out. And it was kind of a funny thing, but he had the gun, and he did the triangle choke. I mean, that's crazy. 1994, and he was putting me in the triangle choke. I don't know where the hell he found that from.
Jesus.
So we had a really big group, and then we started doing the trampoline stuff, which is maybe 94, 95. My buddy got a trampoline, and his parents weren't at home and weren't paying attention. We would just wrestle for hours on the trampoline. We'd do moonsaults off the trampoline. We were doing Hurricane Ranas, crazy drop kicks, just the whole deal. And of course, when that guy heard about it, he was gunning people on the trampoline, typical him with his gun. And, well, one other funny story, if you don't mind, really quick, I'm thinking of, I slept over their house one time. He did a deal where he used to tease us that he had the dirt sheets, because we didn't know really what they were. So he would kind of wave them in front of us, and he would read one line with them and be a dick. Mm-hmm. He'd be like, "This is top secret," and he would give us one little, and he would never let us look at him. So my idea was, if I'm sleeping over, he had his own room, my friend had his room. When everyone went to bed, I was going to break into his room, and I was going to steal the sheets, and I was going to read them, and then act cool the next day and start telling him all the shit that I found from the sheets. Mm-hmm. So when I broke into his room, He had just started getting into lifting, and I guess he had a dumbbell on the floor. And I tripped over the dumbbell, and I hit my head on the side of his bed. And he woke up just fuming, pissed, and his parents came running in. And it was late. They didn't kick me out, but they said the next morning, I'm going home and I'm in big trouble. It's just like the most bizarre thing because they caught me like breaking into his drawers, so they thinking I was trying to get. And it was because I was trying to get stupid wrestling sheets.
Was this like the Wrestling Observer?
Yeah, well, I think he either had that or the Torch. Yeah, and I was trying to steal it.
Jeez.
And I got caught because I tripped. And the funny thing, normally, if you catch someone doing that, I don't know about you, but you would kick his ass, right? Like punch him.
Yeah.
But what do you think he did?
Told his parents?
No, he gunned me. Remember, he gunned me right on the floor. Instead of like beating me up like a normal guy would do, he kicked me and then he gunned me on the floor after the parents left. And then I was just like, what in the hell? And then the next day they took me home to my parents and I was breaking into this guy's drawer and I had to explain to him it was because I was looking for stupid wrestling sheets, which of course sounds ridiculous, but
Jeez.
Who knows if anyone even believed me, but that's what happened there.
Tribulations of a professional wrestling fan.
What was that?
Tribulations of a pro wrestling fan.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
And later when I started the organized federation, I came up with an idea. I wanted to put guys through tables.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is really bad. I would never do this today, but I was a stupid kid. My idea was, since near my house they were building all these new houses, we'd stalk the guys, find out when the builders would go on lunch, and then we'd go over and take all the tables, like the big plywood boards.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we did. So we had all those boards to do table spots, and then I took garbage cans. They were just like flat cylinders, the bottom's completely flat, and we'd flip them over and just lay the board over it, and then we'd just powerbomb each other through those. And it made for really cool shit on camera. So.
Wow. Do you have any?
So we do table spots. That's how I made a table. It was very simple. Just flip the two garbage cans over and lay the board right on top, and I'd jump over a fence through it. I'd powerbomb a kid through it. I mean, I did flips off ladders, and thankfully, again, no one ever got hurt. And at this time, it was organized. I mean, I had a buddy who made flyers to pass out in school to come to one of our events.
Wow.
So I mean, I had like a legit thing going on here where, I had the notebook, had the matches laid out, we had the ring announcer, had the ref, had the place, had the time, and just had everything. My friend did a thing in the computer lab where he made a screensaver promoting our show one time, so when everyone went in, that's what was on the screensaver. So, yeah, I mean, it worked well. We had a bunch of shows, and one time we had like 20 people showed up, which I thought was huge. Because in the beginning, people were making fun of us, like, look how stupid this is, and then before you know it, there's 20 people there, thinking it's the coolest thing ever. So
well,
that was a fun time.
I wish I had my own backyard wrestling when I was young. All right, now let's move on to the. We already talked a little bit about Ring of Honor. Now, what about these other indie promotions around, like PWG, Chikara? Did you start watching these before the last few years or no?
More on like a casual basis. Early on, when PWG started, I saw some of the early stuff and didn't love it, didn't hate it. Just one of those things. I just kind of watched it. It was just there.
Yeah.
I was at Chikara was kind of the same thing. I guess recently, I don't know what caused me to get more into it. It could just be simply that when mainstream is so down, if you're a legitimate wrestling fan, you look for other things to watch. Whereas if you're a casual fan, you just turn it off and don't come back.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of me, I think I just need something to fill the void because I always want to be watching matches and different things. So over the last few years, I've given PWG, Chikara, and those type of promotions much more of a chance, and I've watched it a lot more. So probably for the last 2 years.
All right.
I've enjoyed both, to be honest.
What are your feelings with Gabe Sapolsky?
It's such a polarizing figure, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I definitely don't think he's the worst booker ever. I wouldn't say that. I think, if I'm going to say nice things about him, I think one thing he does well is he'll take a guy that nobody's ever heard of and that no one really give a chance, and in 6 months to a year, he'll at least give the guy name value. He may not be the top of the promotion, but I think he'll do a good job as going from the guy's a scrub to the guy having value, where if you put him on the card, people say, oh, cool, I want to see that guy. I know that guy. And he does a real good job of building that guy, and he does it with a number of guys. I think that's a really strong point, and if you look at most bookers, they can't do that. I mean, I can't even think of many who can do that well. one of the early guys was Ole Anderson was credited for that. He did that with a lot of guys. So maybe Gabe went back and watched his stuff because he's reminding me a lot of Ole Anderson from that sense. What he doesn't do well, as you see, just sometimes the storylines just never get over to the live crowd. I mean, never. I've never been there for one angle that the crowd has given a shit about. And the only one that did get over, which we always joke about, never aired on pay-per-view.
Which one?
The Dragon, what was that? Dragon Davey Richards.
Davey, yeah.
So that's a real problem. I think the way the shows are structured, sometimes you have opening matches where you have guys kicking out of stuff, and it's a bad thing when the fans say the best match was the opening match, because then the rest of the card there, and they don't care. They're sitting back. So that's bad. I think another thing, it looks like he's not doing that now, but he was doing, he fell in that TNA trap, bringing in name value, Teddy Hart, Tommy Dreamer, one of those guys, Jack Evans, Sabu, Paul London, Brian Kendrick. Those guys did nothing. They hurt the show. They actually killed the show. Because I sat there in Phoenix. They killed the show. I wanted to see Dragon Gate guys, and he has those guys. So that's a big problem. I'm trying to think if I can come up with other nice things about him. I mean, you could say he promotes well. I mean, he promotes a lot. He may not draw a lot, but I guess at least he tries. Unlike you see other promotions, they'll just give up on promoting their shows. So, he uses Twitter. He's on, I guess, other ways. Wrestling Observer, Pro Wrestling Insider. He does a lot of audio interviews. So at least he hasn't given up. Even though he has bad attendance, he is trying to continue to get his promotion out there, continue to spread the word. So that's positive. But I don't hate the guy, even though most people think I do because I'm knocking him. I just say it like I see it with him, and that's kind of how I view him.
Would you like to have him in charge of TNA, for example?
If he was in charge with nobody over him?
Nobody to over him, nobody to filter him.
I think it would definitely be an improvement. I don't know long term where I would go, because he's one of those guys where I think if you bring him in short term, he'll give you a huge shot. But I don't know what would happen in 2 years. It may be in just as bad shape. It's hard to say. But I really think with him, definitely first 6 months, everyone would be like, man, TNA's on the right track. But again, in 6 months, in 2 years, not sure I can say that. Don't know if I have that type of faith in him. Definitely he would have a short-term fix, no doubt.
And right now your favorite promotion is?
Jeez, I don't even know. I'd probably say Ring of Honor.
All right. That's fair. What do you think of the TV show so far?
Well, it's maybe a little different, the way I'm looking at the show than others. I'm trying to think of a way to explain this so I'm not knocking ROH, because this definitely isn't a knock on them. It's more of a knock on wrestling. Basically, the way I'm looking at it is they want to do an intro-level show because they're under this premise that there's all these new fans watching. The thing is, I don't think there are any new fans watching. I don't think there are all these fans out there thinking, oh man, mainstream wrestling sucks. Let's find something cool to watch. When they flip through the channels, they see Ring of Honor and they stop on it. I really believe that 90% of the people watching, maybe more, are ROH fans, not new fans. So I don't know if it's a bad idea to do it this intro level. I'm just not sure how productive it is when you don't have a huge, massive audience that's new to the product watching it. And I may be wrong, because I don't have numbers, I don't have figures. I'm just going on what I think. So I don't know if I would maybe do something totally different, but like I said, it's hard to say how successful this is going to be, because I just don't think there are enough fans out there looking to get back into watching. I think that those fans are gone. They're not coming back. I think most WWE fans don't know about indies and don't care about it. So you're just really focusing and marketing toward your ROH base.
I got you. All right. I think that's going to do it. We got a lot of time on there. Brian, is there anything you want to plug before we go off the air?
Well, not really. I don't think anyone's interested in finding me. Maybe after this, they'll be even less interested in finding me. I will say, I think people should follow you, though, on Twitter. Follow your videos. I do enjoy checking them out at work and listening to them. It's just good to get a different point of view. No, you don't always have to agree with someone. I could say probably 50% of the time I don't agree with you, but that doesn't mean I don't like what you're saying, or I think it's dumb. It's just a difference of opinion, and I think that's good. Not everyone should just follow each other. It's like people shouldn't be thinking they have to hate TNA, for example, because that's the in thing to do, because everyone else does. Now, if you like something, you like it. And if you agree with something, you agree, and if you don't, you don't. So I would say people should check you out. I think if any wrestling fans are tired of this, I think they should check out Wrestle Revolution when that comes out. Maybe you can put a description for everyone. That's the thing that Jeff Katz is starting up. I firmly believe that's going to be awesome. You may make me look stupid, but I really think that's going to be some really good stuff. You finally have a guy who is doing everything the right way. It's basically going to be old school wrestling with kind of a new flavor. I mean, he's the only guy that's had the balls to take household names and rebrand them. Who else has ever done that?
No one.
No one's ever done that. He's put MVP on there, you're not even going to know he's MVP. No one has ever had the balls to do that. I mean, maybe, and Paul Heyman kind of did that with certain guys where he wouldn't use them, but he also kind of still told you they were formerly this guy. He made sure to say that. This guy's not doing that. Completely overhauling these characters. Everything is going to, from what I hear, make sense. It's not going to be ridiculous, and
it's going to be widely distributed via Hulu and stuff like that. Yeah. So
I think the format of it's great, and I think it's perfect for the person who's just tired of all this garbage that we have to see every week. So, and I would suggest, please don't torrent it. I understand that most people don't have money and times are tough, but do your best to try and get it another way.
For those that are wondering what just so I can see the main premise. Basically, they also, another thing besides what he was already saying, they also want to shoot wrestling in the form of a long-built major show, like a TV show. Like, it's going to be like 13, I believe, shows. It's going to climax on the 13th show. Like, it's actually going to build. It's actually going to have great storyline progression. It's going to be something special.
Beginning, middle, end. When do you ever hear someone say that in wrestling?
I don't know.
And you're going to have 9-minute shows, 13 weeks. You're going to have an introductory, then you're going to have a middle part where it really picks up. You're going to have a peak, and then you're going to have a finish. What can you ask for?
Yeah.
So you can actually watch the intro and then actually spend time thinking about where it's going. How amazing is that?
I know. It's pretty incredible.
And you'll actually get a payoff.
Yes. Very true.
So please, people, if you can, support this. Try not to steal it. That's the thing to do now. I'm a hypocrite because I've even done it. But I just wish people, talk about the indie level, I just wish people would really do their best to not porn stuff so much on the indie level. You just don't realize the damage it's doing. I mean, King of Trios comes out, and if you just download this show every year, you really think 2-3 years from now they're still bringing in all this foreign talent?
I got you.
I know you think, it's only $45. They don't notice it. Well, when you're a mom and pop store, $45 is much more of a percentage than $45 is for a WWE or something. So it's really important to put your money into these companies if you're really disgruntled and just support it. I mean, with Ring of Honor, it's the same thing. You hear these people complain, oh, they don't bring in the Japanese talent. Where's all the Japanese talent? But then you're the same asshole who downloads the shows.
Yep.
I can't hear from you. You're going to sit there and tell me, bring in the Japanese talent, and then you're fucking stealing the shows. And you're going to say that. You're going to have the balls to say that after you're sitting there stealing the show. I mean, really, how dare you fucking pull that shit? And it's just, I hear people do that all the time. And it's just infuriating to hear that. You cannot complain about a company not bringing in guys when you're going to steal that shit. And again, you may think, this guy sounds crazy hearing me right now. It's only $15, but trust me, it's a lot more when you're dealing with that economy and a small company.
And you're dealing with the fact that hundreds, maybe even thousands of wrestling fans have that same mentality. It's only $45. Who cares? It's only $45. Who cares?
And it adds up.
Yeah.
So I understand times are tough, but really do your best to just spread the wealth a little. Maybe if you're going to steal, spread it out rather than only buy ROH and then steal from everyone else. I know it's ridiculous logic, but I'm trying to help. If you can, buy a little from ROH, buy a little from PWG, and then kind of spread out your stealing. Because if you just buy from one company and steal from the rest, I mean, you're killing them off. You're the same person who's going to say, I hate mainstream wrestling, but you're also killing off the one thing you do like. Mm-hmm. So if you want this stuff to stick around, you want ROH to stick around, you want PWG, you want the Indies, Dragon Gate, all this stuff to stick around, you got to do your best to put some money into it. Or one day you're going to wake up and that shit's going to be gone. And then you'll have fun just watching Vince every Monday.
And Impact every Thursday. If we even get that.
Well, instead of giving everyone my plugs, I guess I gave them my PSA, as Mike Bennett does.
Brian's PSAs. Well, for those that do care, you can follow Brian at twitter.com/sodapapinski82. I will put that link in the description box. I will put a bunch of information for the Wrestling Revolution project because I also believe it is something great. And Brian, it's been great. Really, really great stuff here. And I want to thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I had a lot of fun.
All right, man. And with that, we are done. Sanders Robin interview is the next one after this. I still have all his questions, so you can send more if you want. All right. I'm Big Red 310. And this was my guest, Brian, Next Big Thing. And we are out. Goodbye.